A year to independence between 1961 to 1962. This was the year of achieving what all political parties were for, and this was capturing political power.
I think what caused the major problem then was having political parties that had no serious ideology. Their focus was on attaining independence. So once the independence was attained, all hell broke loose.
This, at least, was to happen through constitutional means, and the route to that was through elections. Elections had to be won, but to win that election, you must have had majority votes. This was compromise, alliances, and some other craftiness.
The Lancaster Conference and the issues at hand were clearly laid down. Strategic interests for different entities. And the alliances were crafted based on those specific strategic interests. So one party was willing to meet them and compromise, another wasn't.
At this time, Uganda, and particularly the Mengo establishment, miscalculated by boycotting the 1961 elections to the Legislative Council. They even intimidated those who participated in it.
In 61, that was the arrangement, that KY had strategic interests. UPC had strategic interests. So they met halfway. The biggest problem was with Obote, who was not interested in enforcing the agreement, the alliance agreement. For him, his interest was in capturing power. Once he got power, then he disregarded whatever was agreed upon.
This notwithstanding, it gave birth to the Democratic Party with a majority vote, and they formed a government led by Benedicto Kiwanuka as a chief minister.
Democratic Party had, as a single party, had more members of parliament than any political party. So in any case, Benny Kiwanuka had more latitude to form government, but he chose not to.
However, it's important to note that these were elections conducted under the laws that Ugandans never participated in, to purge the Catholic protracted move to capture political power in the independent Uganda that was soon a movement by the Baganda leadership for purposes of defeating the Democratic Party. The Kabaka Yeka was shortly announced after the Constitutional Conference as a vehicle by which they were going to contest the Lukiko elections. This was a strange organization. It never had a manifesto because it hinged on Kabaka alone, Kabaka Yeka. According to this organization, whoever was not part of the Kabaka was deemed to be living a treasonable existence.
The fact of the matter is, Musaz, despite having benefited from Western education, he hated the Western system with a passion. Because he critiqued their systems right from the theological college where he was. So when he returned here, it was their mission to frustrate him.
They pushed all sorts of disinformation, such as that Kiwanuka was an anti-monarchism and threatening to overthrow the monarch and establish a republic. Between religion and tribes, the Mengo establishment opted for one of the evils, namely to shed the tribal lines and minimize the gains of the Catholic tribesmen representing a political opponent, the Democratic Party, to a Protestant Uganda People's Congress, though from without Uganda.
The same thing with Benedicto Kiwanuka was very uncompromising in terms of his principles. In fact, even where he came from in central Uganda was never appreciated at the time. Ugandans never appreciated him at the time because he was a man of principles. He would not compromise on the values that he so much cherished.
Consequently, Kabaka Yeka in 1962 sent in 21 elected members, sent in by Lukiko, added to the 37 directly elected members of the Uganda People's Congress, which brought Uganda People's Congress to power, and Milton Obote as a leader to form government that led Uganda to independence.
Then put his points on paper, and he said we need to reach an amicable solution. We need to reach an agreement. So Obote said, for me, I'm taking everything you're proposing. But in his heart of hearts, he knew that that was not the case.
This kind of politics evacuated into the Kabaka crisis of 1966.
But I do not know why you should ask me that question now. But the most interesting thing is that the pressmen seem to think that the Kabaka has done nothing wrong. That it's only the government that has done wrong things.
And Obote's dictatorial suspension of the 1962 Constitution and declaring himself an executive president, and his 1969 move to the left, the Common Man's Charter, which was a replica of Tanzania's Arusha Declaration of 1967, which violated the right to property.
That Obote and UPC was not interested in that constitution. His interest was in acquiring power. So if I were in his shoes and I was interested in having a stable and prosperous Uganda, I would rather have postponed Uganda getting independence in 62 until we reach an agreeable position, not just to append my signature on a document just because I want to become head of state.
However, the contradiction that ensued from these religion-tribal-based party politics created conditions for a man like Idi Amin to emerge and overthrow Obote in 1971.
That when Obote sent Idi Amin to storm the palace in Mengo in 1966, he didn't know that he was teaching Idi Amin that politics and constitution are political expedients that can be gotten rid of to suit the president of the day. As day follows night, Amin used the very same script to overthrow Obote.
Amin inherited the same fundamental problems that Obote had confronted. To create popular support, Amin, the northerner, had to appease the southerners, and more especially the Baganda, who were at the core. He arranged that Mutesa's body be returned and be buried near his forebearers. Timothy Spasi, UBC.